Hey there, how you going? Here's my recipe for sourdough crackers. It's a pretty basic recipe, simple to do. There's a few little tips and tricks that I like to use to make them. I'm a novice, I'm not an expert. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have recipes for sourdough bread, crackers, and I have looked at some on YouTube. This is my version. I hope you like it. Okay, so now it is time. Let me put my chef's hat on a second. Try that again. It is time. Hang on, let me put my chef's hat on a second. There we go. To do my sourdough crackers. Yes. And because it gets a little bit messy, I think I'll get dressed for the occasion. Just one moment. Da-da! Or wherever. Because I'm British. Anyway. What do we need? This is my favourite crackers. You can't buy crackers like this in the shops, I don't care what you say. This has to be tops as far as crackers are concerned. Again, I've been onto YouTube. There's different people with different recipes, sourdough crackers. Yeah, well, I've done a little bit of experimenting, and yeah, I've come up with my sourdough crackers consist of sourdough, which I feed pretty much every day, flour. So I go 50-50. I like the flavour of the sourdough. So I've got pasta dura, which is just a flavour, some sort of flour, a bread flour, sourdough, onion powder, garlic powder. I use some dukkha, spread on the top, salt, pepper, and if I want to flash a bit, I'll do a bit of parmesan, but I use Romano parmesan, which is quite a slightly stronger flavour than the parmesan, and there's not too many places stock it, but it's really good. I love it. So what I do is I measure out my sourdough, zero the scales, and I'm going to use about 200 grams, if I've got 200 grams of sourdough. And even if I drain the bottom of this, I can just refeed it and it'll pick up again. Oh, so that's just slightly over 200 grams of sourdough. Clear that again. I'll refeed that sourdough once I've finished all this. Now I want 200 grams of the flour, 200 grams of pasta dura, thereabouts. What have I got here? You don't need to be too exact. Close enough is good enough. I'll go 50-50. I'll get the flavour then. Alright, that's bang on 200 grams. And I need water. So that is the flour mix. What I tend to do is I don't put tap water in because of the chlorine. It doesn't help. If you're making sourdough, chlorine in the water is not a good thing. So I boil the kettle and that boils away all the nasties. and leaves the water fairly pure, and I use that then for my starter as well as my dough mix. So what I do is, you can either use a spatula or you can use whatever you like to mix this up. And I haven't got any exact amounts. A reasonably sticky dough, and you just work it in and see how it, if you're making sourdough bread, they sort of say stickier the better. This I might have put too much water in that, but I can always add a bit of flour to it if I need to, because this will stick to your hands like wallpaper glue. That is, yeah, that's not bad. Now you can, I'm not going to put it in the fridge, I'm going to basically make it from scratch. Usually you make your dough up and you put it in the fridge in some Glad wrap, plastic wrap, in the fridge for a while. I'm actually going to put a bit more flour into that. I haven't got a great deal left in here, but it doesn't matter. Whatever I've got will do the job. Let's see how that looks. And it's basically like kneading bread. And we all need bread, don't we? Not that sort of kneading though, is it? And usually I would put this in Glad wrap and put it in the fridge. I haven't prepared one earlier, so you're just going to have to live with it. It does stick like buggery, but if it starts to stick again, I can always put a little bit more flour. When you tend to make the bread, you don't add more flour to it. You leave it sticky. And I haven't made any sourdough bread for a number of weeks, so I shall do some again soon. Maybe I'll show you my method of doing that, because it'd be good to put it in the pizza oven, which I've got revved up at the moment. So yeah, anyway. Now the problem I had with making the crackers is, if you don't get the crackers at the right thickness, they can either be a bit chewy inside, which they tend to get a bit chewy inside, so it doesn't work out that well. I have a little trick that I found at them. Probably a few of you might have something in the kitchen that, I've got a rolling pin, so I can do it with a rolling pin, but I never seem to get the same consistency, and it's a bit hit and miss with getting up the right thickness to make a cracker. Otherwise you end up with something that's crispy on the edges but it's a bit chewy on the inside. So the idea is to get the dough, that hurts. I broke my wrist a while back at work and it's limited in what it can do nowadays. But if I get this out, I'll put some, get rid of this. Back in the cupboard. I've got another bag of pasta during here which I can get that out. Get rid of the bowl for now. and just knead this around a bit. Remember, you're making like a bread dough, so it's the more you knead it, the more it, and I do mine, people stretch it and turn it over and stuff like that. I tend to just roll it around. So when you peel it open, a bit like that can get a bit sticky, so roll it around in the flour a bit so it doesn't stick to your hand. That's not a bad dough. That's not a bad dough for a biscuit. For a cracker, not a biscuit. Now that would be a bit sticky for my other device that I use. So I might get a little bit more flour. That's pretty good. If you smell it, you can smell the sourdough, and because I've gone a 50-50 mix on the sourdough, it gives the crackers quite a distinctive flavour. It's yummy, good. And you can use them with dips. I'm not so worried about the shape and the size of it. I'll show you as I go anyway. I don't tend to make them all square or pretty shapes or anything like that. Now that is getting to the point where that's pretty good. That is pretty good. So that's enough of that for now. I'll need some of this flour for the, here's my little trick to get them all a consistent thickness, because like I said, that is the trick. Because for me to try and use a roller to get a consistent thickness is not, well, some of you might be able to master it, but I haven't been able to master it at the moment. So what I've done is I purchased a pasta maker. Bloody perfect. You can adjust the thicknesses of this thing, and all I do is I put a damp cloth under my chopping board and I clamp this thing to the chopping board at this end, like so. This is so good. It's so much easier doing it like this. I do flour the rollers a little bit so it doesn't stick. Winding handle. That's all good, that's all clean. And then what I do is, I'll just do a little bit to test. Sometimes it can stick to the wheel bit. And like I said, I'm not fussy about the shape of the crackers, because the way it comes out of here is a bit higgledy-piggledy sometimes, but it doesn't really matter how it comes out. So I put it on its widest setting, which is at the moment 2, then it goes down. Now there's a little trick as well, you don't want them too thin, because like I said, they can get a bit chewy and not be a cracker, if you like. So what I do is I'll go through, I'll put my hand under there and catch it, and then I'll just bob it back in the flour. See how that comes out? Well, that's on 2. What I ultimately want is it to get down to maybe 5, I'll see. Let's go through the numbers. and I just feed it through, put my hand in there and support it as it drops out. Now, I've got some baking paper that I slide onto the tray, so what I tend to do is, I've got 3 of these out already. Now, that is basically, I don't know, a mil, just over a mil or something like that. I think what I'll do is pop it down to the next one. The last time I made some of these, they were a little bit too thick. So it's easy enough just to pop it back in. It's so easy doing it like this. Put your hand underneath and push through and support it. And then it comes out on your hand. Now that, oops, it's folded over on itself. What I tend to do is just pat it out a bit. That has just folded over and stuck to itself. I might put it through again. Come on, you bugger. See how easy this is to do it like this? Rather than stand there with a damn rolling pin. Now if this is too long, get over there. I can actually cut it. There. And place that bit on the baking paper. I'll do another one because that came out fairly well. I only need a small piece. What I tend to do is make enough for one set of parchment, and I'll dip it in the flour so it doesn't stick to the wheels. Now I'll open it back up again to 2 and roll it through. There you go, and just dust it again with the flour. Now this one's a bit of a funny shape, so what I might do is chop that off a bit and then run it through again. So down to 3, knife out of the way. Like I said, don't worry about the shape of it. You can be a bit more fussy than me if you like. Again, through the flour. And then go, I'm actually on 5 there. So let's see how it goes on 5. I've already got the oven on 180. So that's preheated. There you go. I think 5. And like I say, look, I've got different sort of shapes here. I'll just live with that. I'll put this piece through and get a bit in there. So let's run that through. Ooh, that can stick a little bit occasionally. Okay, not the best of shapes. Don't really care. Now then, what I tend to do now is I shall spread some dukkha on it. You don't have to do this on every one. You can put your different flavours, and I'll make this one dukkha. Yeah. I'll put a bit of salt. Don't go too wild. And with the pepper, I've got your normal ground pepper mixed in there, but what I've actually done is I've put, and the British people wouldn't know that, a bit of white pepper, nice with cabbage and other vegetables. Put a bit of white pepper into the mix, and that just gives it that little bit more yummy flavour. Alright, now onion powder. I use just a fine sprinkle of that. And garlic powder. I'm tending not to put wet ingredients on these because I don't want them to be soggy or anything like that. Now, if I want to, I can put some parmesan on there. Maybe I'll just do one. A little bit of parmesan. Parmesan can make them a little bit sticky and chewy, but this Romano parmesan, is really good. Now what I tend to do is, I'll actually cut some indentations. I won't go all the way, well, probably all the way through, but you got to watch it doesn't stick to the knife. But it's easier to break them up into segments if you do this before they go in the oven. So actually I have got a pizza cutter that I can actually, but I found that it sticks to that. So maybe the roller cutters might be a good idea. They might do the job. And you can make these any size you like. You'll find that they won't grow much in the oven. Sometimes they puff up. You get air inside them. Alright, so that is it. What I tend to do now is, so that the spices and the salt and the pepper sticks to it, I'll gently, be careful that I don't roll them up, I shall roll this stuff, the parmesan, maybe I should have done it without parmesan in there. So it sort of pushes the salt and the pepper and that into the cracker. I keep trying to say biscuits, don't I? They're crackers. Right, they're done. So all I need to do now is get it into the oven. You've got to be careful when you put it in the oven. They can cook really quick depending on your oven. You basically got to stand there and watch it. Otherwise it burns. Then they tend to be a bit bitter. So you've really got to keep your eye on, because they do, because of them being so thick and depending on your oven as well. This is a fan force. But I did put foil on there, that's a waste of time. And what I do is get the tray out and then slide it onto the tray like that. And see, it doesn't always do that, but these are folded over. I'll get there. Alright, there you go. Straight in the oven. Middle shelf, wherever. Doesn't matter. I'll take the foil out. And, I don't know, 5-10 minutes maybe. While that is doing, and I'll keep my eye on it, I shall make some more. So, again, dip it in the flour because you'll find it a little bit chewy in the middle there. And you can roll it up. If you've got a pasta maker, you can sort of maybe get it to a certain size, take it back out to its wide setting, and a bit of flour, make sure it doesn't stick, go through the roller. Right, and a bit of flour again, because you can feel it's quite sticky when it comes out there. I think I need some more flour. And widen it down a bit. 3, 4. And push it through again. Alright, now what I might do is I'll dust that again, or I'll cut it in half. So put it on the paper, and if I cut it there I can run it through again. So I'll dust this side with flour again, and I'll put it down to 5. So this is making them really quite thin. Pass that through, put your hand in, catch it as it comes through, pull it out. That is thin enough, that is good. And it's just roughly the right size for the paper, for the baking paper. So I'll run this one through again on 5. Put my hand through and catch it as it comes through. Look at that. That's coming out quite well. I'll do one more. And they're looking good. You'll find some of them will actually puff up in certain places, but generally it's still all right, it's still fine. Right, back it out again to 2. Now if I didn't have this damp towel underneath the chopping board, while I'm winding, when it gets a bit heavy to wind, the whole chopping board moves around a bit, so that's why I've got that under there. So I'll take it down to 3 or 4 again, run it through again, put my hand underneath, there we go. Now I'm going to chop this one in half again, and I'm going to put it on 5. Dusted it again, try and get it. If you find that edge won't go in properly, just flick it around. Alright, oh look at that. That's probably too big for the paper, so I might have to. It's alright to do this. Rest those for a couple of minutes, and then I'll put this on here, hand it down, and I'll do this one on 5 as well, and that can go up, so there'll be 2. That's actually come out quite nice. Try not to let it fold over, otherwise you end up with a chewy bit. I'm going to do this one as a parmesan one, so I'll put a little bit of salt on there and pepper. I'm not going to put the duca on this one. Yeah, that's that. I'm going to put the onion powder. This just sets them off really nice, this onion powder. I was quite pleased with using that stuff. It worked out pretty good. And the garlic powder. And you don't need a huge amount on there. Otherwise you can go a bit too salty. Now what I'll do is, before I put the parmesan on, I shall roll these 2. Romano Parmesan. I should have cut them, shouldn't I? Yep. Keep an eye on those. They have puffed up a little bit, some of them. And then just when they're done, bring them out, put them on a drying rack, like a cake drying rack will do the job. Fairly straightforward. And I'll just cut these up through the middle. That way they're not too big once they're made. Parmesan. Romano. Someone put me onto this cheese years ago and I just love Romano, just that extra bit of, I like a strong cheese. I don't like a weak cheese. So these, actually, with that, if you want to, you can put a squeeze of lemon on there, which makes it, it's just a bit of add-on. They're ready. These are pretty much there. I'll tend to bring them out and put them on the drying rack, which I shall put there. Now, different parts of this oven cook at different temperatures, so you might find one corner will be pretty much cooked before the rest of it is, so you have to be a little bit, you know your ovens better than I do. This oven is a bit of a pain, but it does the job. It's electric, fan forced. You can see with some of these, they're actually puffed up a fair bit. Doesn't matter. They still end up as crackers, still good in dips. They're not quite there yet. I'll probably have the oven up at 200 generally and cook them a bit quicker, but at the moment I've got it on 180. I'll put it up a little bit so we don't waste too much time cooking. And what I'm looking for is a nice golden brown. Get them out, see if they're still pliable or when they crack, and yeah, just take it from there, see how good they are. I love this Romano. That is nice cheese. So that little trick is just save the day, because I was doing it with the roller and not having much success. With that, I can get them all a consistent sort of thickness, so it's easier to cook them because they're all one thickness. You don't have to keep going through all of them and find out where the fat ones are not cooked quite as much. I'll take the back corner of this oven tends to cook quicker than the rest, and that's what I'm ending up with. They don't take long to cool down. You put them on the drying rack and basically there. See, that's not too bad. Just that blend of the sourdough and the spices. Actually, that do, because it's got a little bit of a kick to it. It's not too bad, but it's yummy. That's good. These will go with anything. consistency of the thickness, that's what you need to. That was Aldi special, 20 bucks. Those poor people in China making things for 20 bucks. Oh, like I said, once you start eating these, you can't stop. They're so good. Right, some of these have maybe gone to the point of no return. Like I said, you got to watch them because they cook so quick. But they are so good. I'll check on that one. Yeah, these are pretty much done. And yes, they're hot, but they're not that hot that they're going to burn the heck out of you. Yeah. Right, so next. I can reuse that. I'll slide these. Don't you come with it, two underneath. Ah! Right, next. That's the Parmesan, the Romano. So what I might do now is make up another section of those. I need to check these to make sure they're not chewy. Once they, see how that's puffed up? That's all right, see? Some of them come out like that. Shapes, same again, not too worried about the shapes. You can see how they're browned up. If you go much more than this, excuse me, they tend to be a little bit bitter, so you've really got to no. If I didn't catch that one when I did, that's good. Good timing. You don't want any more than what you've got there. Otherwise they tend to then get a bit bitter. That's probably a bit light. And see, there's a bit of a chewiness in that one. So a little bit undercooked in the middle, but still acceptable. The ones with the Parmesan, you'll find, because the Parmesan melts, they'll be a bit chewy together, stuck together. There's another one. You can see different parts of the oven. Look at that cracker. Oh. Oh. That's good. They've cooled down really quick. I'll put them in a just put them on a plate for now. Let them cool down a little bit more. Keep your eye on them. They're fine at the moment. The back right hand corner of this oven tends to get quite hot and they cook quicker on that side than they do in the rest of the oven. So I'll make just another one up for this. Open the pasta maker out, roll it out. You find if it's a little bit sticky, it bites on the wheels. That's why I tend to dust it with a flour, just to stop it from doing that. Wind it into about 3 or 4. Send it through again. I think 5 seems to be the ideal size of thickness for these. I'm sure not all pasta machines have the same sort of thickness than some. Maybe they do, I don't know. Ran out of flour again. So I'll run this through again on 5. 5. See, stuck a little bit on there, and then they fold over and seal themselves. I shall place that on there, but I'll have to cut it. There you go. It does come apart reasonably easy, but when you're folding, when they fold up, the thick bits tend to, not be that good, so I'll cut them off. And same again, a little bit of salt, again to your flavour. Just pepper. I'd pepper everything just about. I love pepper, especially on the crackers. What is that folded over there? Stop that. Keep your eye open. Like I say, once they go over a certain heat and temperature, they'll burn and then they'll be bitter. So you've really got to. I've got a heap more that I can use here as well. I'm going to make some more duca ones. So these can be garlic powder. Do that from a height, so I don't need a huge amount of that. And onion powder, which I'll have to get some more of down the local shops. I won't put any parmesan on these. Give that a bit of a roll again. Keep my eye on these in here. As you can see, they don't need to be in there that long, but it can stick to the roller a little bit, this stuff, so don't be too pushed with that. Just roll it back out onto there. And you can see how crackly they are. Simple to make, delicious. You can make them probably if you haven't got any sourdough. I just think that sourdough gives it that bit of extra flavour. If you eat sourdough bread, you'd know exactly what I'm talking about. Plain flour, you've got to put the flavours into it. This has already got a flavour in it. You just add into it by putting the salts and the onion powder, garlic powder, pepper, duca. You can maybe, what else could you put on it? There's probably lots of things you can add to it, just for your flavours and stuff, and then you have it with a hummus dip, or, you know, actually, if you add tomatoes, like nice ripe tomatoes, you can mix that in with the dough and make a tomato based dough and roll it out the same. It would be a bit more moist by adding water into it, so you'd have to be a little bit careful doing that. Dried tomatoes, crushed olives, anything. I haven't tried those yet. Maybe I'll try those in the future. But these are on their way. You can see by this what sort of crackers yeah, geez, they're so good. And then for dips and stuff like that, better than anything you buy at the supermarket. Just that sourdough flavour on these things. It's just heaven. Anyway, that's about it for now. That's my sourdough cracker recipe. Hope you like it.